Puppy lap. Yay. So Gene Key 60. Yay. This is the full moon Capricorn, second time around for July. We had one in June and we're having another in July, and it's not playing with us, folks. We've seen quite a few effects. I just had my birthday last week. So yeah, it's just been over a week. And it was an exciting time for everybody. We've had some massive changes on a global scale. So, I'm not into the whole newsworthiness of these things. And for me, it's never about prediction, it's always about planning, about co creating with what's given. We've already been given so much and resourced so well. So it's nice to tune in and remember that, right? And get on board with what's happening, what wants to happen, and the way that we see it helping everybody, right? So that's a lot of what's been going on with me. I was in this wonderful 3-day event over the weekend. So normally I like to do this on the moon, but there's a couple things going on of taking care of myself and showing up for a community that amplify the energy of this so much. It really was this feeling of the magic of structure in a real way. Was in the Financial Freedom 101 workshop this weekend. Y'all, if I ever tell you all about that, just go, just go. I know. I'm not supposed to be promoting, sorry. But it really does change lives, and it changes lives through structure. And so it was a perfect realization of, wow, this is the gene key, but the gift of realism. And this is what's happening. People are finding the structure that creates the transformation they need in their finances. And it's just beautiful. And it's just the truth of the magic and the genius in this key. Well, Karen Curry Parker calls this key the gate of conservation. And she has her own ideas as well. But what happens in this shadow of this energy, so it's never the energy that's wrong, there's nothing wrong here. Shadows are part of observing light, right? But it helps us recognize it, right? Because sometimes the light is so blinding, it's just a blind spot, and it doesn't tell us where that shadow is hiding. That doesn't allow us to experience the full possibility, right? Anyways, but that is why I love to dive in on the shadow side first, because that's what we most recognize. We recognize when things are going not as well as we'd hoped, right? So that is what we're working on today. The shadow is limitation, and the gene keys, the gift is realism, the city is justice. And it's about this closed circuit thinking that creates the restrictive patterns that don't allow us to move ahead, to shift into new realities and new possibility. And so it looks like governmental red tape, and it looks like 1,000 forms to do a simple project, right? And so whenever that's happening, it's usually what happens there is that they build up a structure in order to make something work. And this is what Richard Rudd dives into, is this understanding that yes, structures are needed, but they will always be temporary. They will always start to break down because they're happening in the 3D reality. So the materials will only last but so long, right? So we have to notice when a structure is getting old, when a system is getting old, and when it's time to replace it, instead of trying to hold on to it with your whole dear life, which is something that Karen Curry talks about as well. So it's really cool that, how these things align, which is why I like to talk about both. And so if you're experiencing that, if you're feeling like something's breaking down, breaking apart, feels like chaos, usually it gets to the chaotic point when we refuse to let go of the old structure, right? And that's usually that feeling of like getting stuck. Um, and yeah, you can't force, right? You can't force this thing happening. So that's again another part of what we understand about limitation. Like you can't make the paperwork go faster. Like the process is the process until it's not, until we've let go into a new possibility. And that's kind of where the tension is coming in the world now. People are not letting go to the new possibility. They really think that the old structures that have kept them safe are going to continue to keep them safe. But what I like to talk about is well, let me tell you the quote that comes from from the Gene Keys first. Shadow concerns the human over reliance on structure and the consequent death of something very special indeed. Magic. Magic refers to the events that do not follow logical sequential laws. Magic is spontaneous, highly mutative, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. Its greatest quality is that it is beyond meaning or understanding. And so, what I was just talking about this key representing is essentially how structure creates magic, right? Because again, it's not the thing, the energy itself, the quality of that energy of structure that's the problem. It's how we are perceiving and relating to it. And so if we're relating to it like it's a permanence, if we're relating to it like it's the only thing happening, like the 3D is the only thing happening, then that's where the shadow lies. So yeah, so that feeling is what I call scaffolding, right? Like a lot of our structures are made to get us to a point, and they were needed for a time to get us to a new stage of humanity, of our development. And so when we are again, when we're thinking that the scaffolding is going to keep us safe forever, then that's when we start needing to start running, chasing fires, fixing the problems, right? It starts to look like that, even in our businesses, right? In the beginning, you need certain structures because that's just the size of the business. And that's, but once the business is ready to go to a next level, then it's time to take down some of the cumbersome structures and like streamline it. And recognizing where you are in that evolution, right, is part of the gift here. So yeah, so this again, the structure itself is not the problem. There are patterns. And so when in the shadow side, what we're doing is we're not wanting to have any structure. It's like the repressive side here was to like not commit to anything. And what happens is without that structure, it just doesn't allow for potential to happen. Like so um I've seen this even where people want it to be so exact to the final building, right? They don't want to deal with the scaffolding. They don't want to spend time for it to look a little ugly first, right? They want it to go straight to the building. But what that does, it means that people never get started, you know? And so now we're just kind of amalgamous and yeah, I have a great idea and it's great in my head, but nothing's happening in the 3D, right? On the reactive side, it looks like being rigid. And this is where you think, oh, well, yeah, I did scaffolding and then I did the brick. And so I have the brick and the mortar, and the brick and mortar is perfect and it'll never go wrong. Well, it'll last a really long time. That's the beauty of stronger materials. But there will always be a point in which those things need to be shifted, changed, upgraded, whatever, right? Like it's going to need some tender love at minimum. So whenever we feel like it has to be exactly the same as it was originally, without what it would mean to make it thrive in this new possibility and a transformative time or society, all right, then it starts to just break into pieces. Have we seen like old mortar? It's just crumbly and something that's used to be so substantial looks like dust in the wind. It's rough, right? So you don't want to get into that level. And when people are holding this, and it's always out of this fear, right? So either the fear that if I commit, then I'm committing to scaffolding for the rest of my life, right? Or the fear that if I allow things to change, that my safety will be threatened. So those are the kind of fears that are working in the shadow. And what we tend to do is, instead of finding the structure that suits the transformative process that we are in at this time, in other words, how to meet this moment so that we can get the most out of our potential and our project or what we want to create, right? Then it will, we do things to distract ourselves. So this is the programming partner. 56 is distraction. Okay, that shadow is like right behind. It's like, oh, we're scared to build commitments, or scared to, right? Oh, let's like do something else. Let's, count how many full moons there are this year, right? Like, right? So those little distractions can take us away from the big picture and therefore big progress. So the power that wants to happen within this energy is that the limitations of the 3D reality, the laws of this, of nature and the universe, right, are allowing the manifestation of form, right? So there's structure that actually creates and transcends. And that's what this invitation of this energy is. The gift and genius here is to allow that structure to be the transformative ingredient into the magic, right? The common sense of magic, because you need a formula to get to a certain level. You need to try things out. And I'm always one that is always talking about adding yourself into that formula. Don't just use somebody else's. Know your own energy, know your own style. Get that as part of what you've put into the ingredients to create the thing, in order for it to feel good and supportive for you and your energy, right? So anyway, but that's what it is. I'm going to mention the I Ching here because this is where the original 64 came from the Gene Keys and from Human Design, came from I Ching, right? From that long tradition. Again, I highly recommend Benebel's book, because this is where I'm getting this information from, and the quote, it will be from here. Okay. So the quote for 60, which is from what I can tell, G, and means from boundaries as stated by the book. And the quote is, you have not set the proper limits on yourself. Without boundaries, there is no identity. Without identity, you have no sense of yourself. Without a sense of yourself, you do not know what you really want and feel no purpose. Without feeling a purpose, you will remain aimless. Your way to success now is through self-discipline. And through self-discipline, you will realize what you really want. Tame your emotions, know who you are. So it's just, Benebel backing me up here, right? But she's gone through many, many translations of I Ching, and brought her own wisdom and metaphysical understanding to a lot of it. That's why I love this book so much. And her own process and progress in the understanding of energy and application of magic, literally. So it's just nice to have a practitioner who's experiencing these things, but also going to her wisdom that has been put down through the ages. So I love her as a reference. And yay, that's great energy. This is like, it can feel a little, well, common sense. Oh, realism. Do I want to be real? I don't know. I know a lot of times I'm like, no, let's go full delusional. I have to go to the edge of that because I tend to be too realistic. I'm too bogged down by what I'm seeing in my senses, right? But the magic here is that we are able to allow the known beauty. So that's why I go back to nature. The laws of the universe are the aspects of nature, right? That's why I go to cycles. That's why I go to things like astrology, because our interpretation of the structures that we build around them are never as important as the energy and the way it wants to move itself, which is why I'm diving into I Ching as well. It's a book of changes. It's telling you how energy moves and changes. And so, yeah, anyways, going down a rabbit hole there. So the challenge, so for Karen Curry Parker, I want to always bring it back here. That's why I start with the gene keys. This gives you the why theory that we helps us to kind of orient to why it matters, right? Overall. And then Karen Curry Parker kind of like brings it home to what are we creating? And her translation is conservation for this gate 60 on quantum human design and not resisting what came before. So this is another aspect of that, right? Like it's just saying like, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Not trying to risk and to go back to where you came from before, right? So it's that when you're trying to like go back to when it was safe and when I felt good and when I was supported or that feeling or what you think is security, like trying to go back in time to the old USA, in my opinion, is this idea, right? So it depends on who you are and what this means to you. But if you're trying to go back to your childhood, that's not a good sign, right? We really the world is going to continue to grow, continue to change. That is what we're here to do, is experience and evolve and move forward. And so it doesn't mean that we don't have any structures that we are maintaining. It just means that if a structure is breaking apart down to dust, then it may be time to do something new, like add some new glue, add some new mortar, something that will allow you to shift, right? If you let fear, so the challenge here is letting fear taking control of your ability to step into resourcefulness, doing what's necessary for the old structure or build a new one, step out of it and get something that's going to make it through the next 1,000 years, right? And that's really where we are in the next 2,000 years of Aquarian age. Um, yeah, the old structures aren't necessarily built for the new age. And so the ones that are ready to go are being obvious. They're being obvious in the declination. And the faster that we let go and allow something new to build, the easier it'll be, right? Optimally, we're seeing what works. So, what did work in the old structure? Um, instead of focusing on the lack. So, what is deteriorating from that structure, right? So, taking what's good from it, bringing it forward, and then allowing the transformation into what is needed next. So, the question here from Karen Curry Parker is, what change am I resisting? And so there's another aspect to this, right? Because even from the I Ching, there's this idea of like, well, you need some kind of, you need some discipline. You need to get your junk together. You don't know who you are. You don't know your purpose. You're not going to get anywhere, and you're wasting your potential. You know, the I Ching is not as airy fairy as our as our light and love astrology, right? But it is true, right? So this is boundaries. That's literally what the I Ching was called, boundaries, right? So what are the boundaries that are defining and help you define for others who you are? And how does that allow you to be more of yourself and more build on that in a sustainable way, right? There's like that part, and then there's the aspect of if it's not broke, not don't fix it. Like that's that phrase that I think is like maybe, but with so much is changing, there is so much chaos nowadays. What that means is that like you change before it breaks, right? If we saw the hints of the change that has been coming through Capricorn for a while now with around the virus time, Capricorn and Saturn was together. Saturn, Uranus, Jupiter, and Capricorn was the start of that time. Now we have Pluto just leaving, at least in the full moon, just leaving Capricorn. So final lessons and what needs, and Pluto will destroy anything that's no longer part of the new foundation. And that's where you get the sudden shifts, right? But if we had learned the lesson through the first iterations, then we wouldn't have like the detritus, right? So sometimes we do need to shift something before it breaks. Like, don't wait. If you can see the nuts and bolts rattling and the rust breaking through, and then it's time to change it. Don't wait till it breaks, right? And so that's another thing, when we can naturally allow the cycle to shift and we don't have as much disruption and chaos. But it is what it be, and we are where we are, and that's okay. And this, but it's the same for your business. Your business is going to need to go through evolution as we are evolving in society and in culture. So, anyways, what are some indicators of things that want to shift for you? Let's go there, right? The three things to let go of in this full moon, Capricorn. We're going to let go of old paradigm. So, this old understanding that it no longer serves the people that we love and care about now and in this day and age, right? Just, oh, old. What is old? Old to me is not something that it has aged, because obviously there's some paradigms that I'm still delving into and still building on. And we all are. We all are building on these amazing wisdoms over ages, right? So it's not about that being the definition of old. What we're looking at here is what is decrepit, what is no longer vibrant and healthful and progressing our love of life and health and prosperity, right? So we're letting go of those paradigms that don't allow for that in this time. Okay. We're letting go of guarantees. This is something I say a lot in my courses, but I don't know if I've said it out here in broad daylight. But if you're looking at guarantees, you're looking for guarantees, and especially in the Aquarian age, and especially in a time of chaos and change, I would be very cautious, very cautious, because essentially there is no guarantee. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. People are dying. I'm sorry, that's the truth. And so you're not guaranteed anything. So if you're looking for a guarantee, you're basically asking for somebody to give you an aspect of safety that's not real, and therefore asking to be lied to in a lot of ways. That's just my opinion. And I'm going to go with it because it's been true for me. Okay. Like, what we want is to do the best with what we have and trust ourselves, trust the way we have come to this planet to be, and trust our decisions based on that, right? Anything else, is going to change, is going to continue to change, and it's going to continue to create chaos. And do we want to be making choices based on that? Because it's most likely going to be disappointing. That's what I'm thinking, right? Third thing to let go of, the mask to satiate the old paradigms. So again, the crumbling paradigms. And a lot of us take up on masks for, again, safety. So, like when we talk about code switching and that kind of thing, I'm not necessarily saying that's an old paradigm, because I think characterization and culture are real. And sometimes when we try to break that up too much, we lose the boundary, right, of the culture. And I think there's something to be said for like appreciating that culture within itself, and not feel like you just sending it out to all the peoples. Okay, like that's what keeps it a culture. And so that doesn't necessarily have to keep, you don't have to be everything everywhere. And if it's just part of who you are, it's part of where you know what you're showing up with, then that's okay too, right? But if we're putting it on as a mask when it's not truly who we are, um, then, and it's only because we think the mortar will only hold if we have this mask on, right? If no, it's crumbling. So the mask ain't gonna help you, right? The mask is not gonna help. So not to satiate the old, right? So if you want to try on a new characterization of who you are, or who you're becoming, right? Becoming supernatural. Is that the book? Or and the what was the other one? Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So those books are, at first when I saw that, I was like, I don't want to break the habit of being myself. Like I want to be more me. I don't want to break the habit of being me. Like that sounds not on path, right? But now that I hear it, I'm like, you know what? Yes, if it's an old habit based on the old story of an old paradigm, then I want to break out of that pattern. And that's part of what is possible in this energy. So embrace it, embrace it. All right. All right. 3 content ideas. Yeah, 3 content ideas for you for your business. Like I like to put this to you in form of questions. Answer the question and make a little post about it or make a little picture that just that shows it happening for you, right? And that's how you want to use these content ideas, okay? The first question is what makes you do, I mean, I'm sorry. I thought I wrote this right. What makes, oh yeah, here I go. What makes what you do work in 3D? Can't read my own stuff, and I didn't even put it in my handwriting. What makes what you do work in the 3D? So in this for now reality, earth plane existence that you can perceive with your 5 senses, what makes how you help people, right, work in the known reality, right? I know a lot of my people are doing a lot of energy work and I'm doing a lot of emotional work, shadow work, this kind of thing. And a lot of times we're so clear on why it's necessary. We're often just like, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just go there and get it done. I'm the same way. Let's just go there and get it done. Let's talk about the real problem. Like, I don't want to mess around with marketing language. I just want to get to the point, right? But the people that are stuck in that perspective of the 5 senses need your help to see how it applies. So we sometimes have to slow down a little bit so that we can show why it matters and why it works ultimately in the 3D, right? So for me, that looks like practicing and using your voice actually is doing several things in this 3D reality. It's already your sound healing vibration. So before you get it right, before you feel confident about your voice, from the very first moment you start doing vocal and vibrational work, it's going to start reframing those cells. It's going to start giving you some spaciousness and giving you more flow in the places that you need it within your body and in your space. Just like a sound bowl would. That's why there's never sound bowls, what the word was supposed to be. um, Bowl wood, right? It's never a wrong sound because it's always the sound that's coming from your body. It can only be right. It's only going to help. Okay. And then as you're building that and as you build the understanding and as you build the awareness of your connection, that builds the confidence in your voice, that builds the strength and the power of the vibration. And so even on the way there, right, it's already working in the 3D reality before you can even understand why or how or when it's going to work, right? So number 2, content idea. What about your support and or community makes it feel safe to change? So this is often what a lot of people need to know about, again, transformative work, transformative businesses, my bridge builders out there trying to get people into this new age paradigm without crumbling, like so. In order for that to happen, people will need to feel safe because there's no safety in the chaos, right? They know they need to change, but that doesn't feel safe. That's just unknown and darkness and unfortunate, really, right? So we have to, in some way, shape, or form, either give them our support and saying, listen, at minimum, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be here. I'm going to support you, and I'm going to support you in this way. For me, it's actually an idea that makes this true for my community. In my community, your voice is perfect. We're never talking about fixing your voice. We're not talking about like somebody else's voice being better, right? It's always about how does your voice serve you, and how do we get more connected and aware of it so we can use it to its ultimate impact and power, right? That the other part is that your voice matters. So even if you don't have all your ideas together, even if you aren't, you know, famous, or a lot of people don't think that you've done a really great work, or you don't have enough degrees, or all of those things that we think matter in the old paradigm, in our community your voice matters regardless of any external truth, right? And truth, right, could be a matter of interpretation. Anyways, the third content idea: what are the boundaries you maintain that define your business? I don't know. Like, I felt like the first one was really about, like, what are we holding? How are we holding that space for others? And this one's about how are you holding your space, like, to be supportive and secure for yourself and what you're building, so that you can keep building it. So you're not going to burn out, so that you can serve more people at the highest level, right? What is that boundary? And for me, that's the voice is first for me. So it starts with me, and then with the people that I serve. It's like another first precept, so to speak. It's that my voice is first for me. I'm going to use my voice for me. When I'm restored and I feel vibrant and alive and electric, then I may choose to share it with you, or I may choose to go stare at a tree. It's up to me. I get to do what I want with my voice, and I give that power, authority, decision making as soon as people come into my studio, because I'm never going to convince you. You have to know that this is the work that's for you. Like, if you don't know that, then we can't work together, because I need that minimum for you to understand that you're the point of choice, right? Because that's what true empowerment is. And so, like, knowing that you don't have to give more than you need to give. And if you're still working on building the structures and boundaries in order for that to happen, then I'm there for you. But first, you have to say that's what you want, right? So that's my secure boundary. That's for my safety too, right? Because I can only give or impart what you are willing to receive. So it's the same thing for your business. The more boundaries you are, the more people, the more clear boundaries that allow people to see through and come in, that you have, the more people will feel safe in your container. And also, the more people will have a clear understanding of what they're entering, what relationship, right, they're entering into with you. So that's why a lot of people have wonderful, like, personal contracts and laws for their own business, laws, like rules for their own business, because it just makes that super clear, right? I'm somebody who would rather have the verbal confirmation, like, I want to hear it out of your mouth, and I want to feel your vibration when you say it, and then we can go from there. But there's a reason why people have made things like contracts and laws and all of these things, right? There's a magic to it, that when it's written and it's got that another step to that 3D reality, that it becomes even more clear, right? So I'm all for that too. So that's what we got for you this week. Woohoo! And yeah, I'm gonna try and see if I can keep these under 30 minutes. This one worked out pretty well. I didn't really get into the programming partner and channel completion, but there are, in my opinion, kind of reiterations of what we've been going through the last few moons. So if you haven't checked out the new moon, full moon for the last, I would say, at least till March, March, April, maybe April, maybe April. April was a big shift. So I would check out at least till April, because there's been a lot of anchoring in of who we are, knowing ourselves. And now we're talking about how do we build structure about that thing, right? So, and how do we let go of old structures that aren't allowing us to be about that thing, right? So, what's going to allow us to transcend into our new level of magic and possibility in our business. So, check that out. I'm also doing a cosmic prosperity challenge. I'm doing that on Facebook right now and Instagram. And I will bring it to YouTube a little bit later, but it may look different by the time it gets to y'all. So if y'all want to dive in as is, that'll be on Instagram and YouTube. And we're doing our, yay, our, they call it podcast, Verve and Vision, on Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific. And we're going to be talking about Enlivening Consciousness, which is this amazing book by one of my wonderful friends. And I really want you to be there and talk about it. We've got some amazing interview content for you. And of course, we'll be talking more astrology about the month of August. So hang out with us there too. I will see you then. Ta ta for now.